to him. To you two, first of all, what do you make of this fine, record fine?
Oh, well, it's the cost of doing business. It's 70 grand from a campaign that spent millions. It's essentially over the paperwork that was filed and the timing of the payments. And the interesting thing is whether or not a criminal charge comes of this. What we are seeing is Electoral Commission having some teeth. It's been previously very reluctant to investigate, let alone fine people substantially, and it's coming under pressure to do that. But I think the real one that's going to be very interesting, and I'd be interested to hear your views on it, having worked on the campaign, is what happens to Vote Leave and their separate investigation, which is yet to conclude.
Right, we'll come to you about that in just a moment, because Arron Banks is now there in Belfast for us. Arron Banks, it's the price of doing business. What do you say?
Well, I completely disagree. You know, we've said we're not happy with what the Electoral Commission have said today, and we will be challenging it in court.
Why aren't you happy? I mean, they seem to have fairly clear reasons for fining you that amount. You broke the rules.
Well, that's not, in our opinion, that's not true. It's a disputed amount of 70,000 that led to a 7 grand overspend on the campaign. That was an internal management charge, which our lawyers have told us wasn't reportable. So we've absolutely made clear that we responded to them with a... I mean, the interesting thing about it is that they issued their draft report after 400 days, asked for our feedback, which we gave, 20 pages of response, and independent accountant's report, which they took 3 days to consider. Now, in the opinion of our lawyers, there's no way they could have done that. So effectively what they've done is they started off their investigation with a remit of investigating Cambridge Analytica and dark Russian money. They found no evidence of any of those things, and they've kind of fined us on a technical accounting issue which is heavily in dispute.
Right, but you do believe that spending rules should be applied, and
Absolutely.
you support and believe in the law.
Absolutely.
Right.
But we disagree with the facts that they put forward. We say that this is not reportable expenditure, and as I say, we set a 20-page report back, along with an independent accountant's opinion of various levels of spend, and they've chosen to ignore that completely and just take the word draft off their report.
Right.
So we'll see them in court, and we'll let a judge decide who's right and who's wrong.
Right. You've said that you think it's politically motivated. Why?
Well, of course it is. I mean, the chairman of the Electoral Commission actually said in public comments that the Brexit campaign was a collection of Eurosceptic nonsense. That's from the man himself. There's been other comments from other Commission members. One said that Blair was right, we need a second referendum. Another one said that the young should ignore the result of the referendum. I mean, it's a politically motivated body.
Was it politically motivated when they fined the Liberal Democrats, the pro-EU party? They were fined £18,000 for breaking spending rules.
Well, I don't know what the Liberal Democrats did or didn't do. I know what we did, which is we filed our report correctly. We responded to their allegations with a 20-page report and an independent accountant's opinion, by the way, and they chose in 3 days just to ignore that and go ahead with their fine.
But I don't quite see, I mean, if you're saying they're politically motivated, it's clear that they have fined other organisations that, in your view... Well, hang on, let me just finish. So the Liberal Democrats have been fined. So was a European Movement UK spending return, also incomplete and inaccurate, and also UKIP. So are you saying that they are a corrupt organisation?
Well, I'm saying that they're politically motivated in the same way the House of Lords is. I mean, these are people, if you look up, if you thought about this rationally, the body that oversees politics should be apolitical. The board of
they say they are apolitical.
Well, yes, but the board of the Electoral Commission is made up of former MPs, ex-Liberal MPs, ex-SNP, former Labour leader councils. It's anything but, and we know that it's a political it acts in a political way.
Or it's just sour grapes on your part because you actually broke the spending rules, you overspent, and you've been fined accordingly.
Well, I've just gave you our explanation. It was to do with a internal management charge, which we do not believe is reportable.
Right, but I mean, how do you explain that other parties, pro-EU parties, have also been fined?
Well, that's not for me to explain, is it? I'm telling you what I think is a justification for today's opinion. Right. And I think it follows on, a sustained campaign against Brexit.
Chloe, what do you say, listening to Arron Banks? Do you think that the Electoral Commission is politically motivated in the way he's just outlined?
No, I don't think so. I think they've probably based their decision on evidence, and they have investigated Vote Leave twice and found there was no wrongdoing. There's another investigation pending now, so we'll see what happens. But I just think it's really rich, actually. Some Remain campaign is now preaching to Leave is about how there was some kind of unfair advantage. If you want to talk about an unfair advantage, let's talk about that £9 million leaflet, the OECD, the big banks, all of the political elite powering behind the Remain campaign. I mean, the idea that Leave had an unfair advantage is a bit nonsensical.
And what do you say to the Remain line that actually organisations like Arron Banks basically cheated to get the result?
Well, I must admit, having dealt with Arron a lot during the referendum and his campaign, I think that Leave.EU sometimes was one of the most catastrophically chaotic campaigns I've ever dealt with at all. But what I'm interested and would like to ask Arron is much more about whether he'll finally give a full declaration of where the money that he put in, the millions of pounds that he put into the campaign, came from.
Right, Arron?
Yeah, it came from me. It came from Peter Hargreaves that donated £3.3 million to send 10 million letters out, and it came in from public donations, all of which we've disclosed. By the way, for Jim Waterstone, I mean, obviously The Guardian have purveyed fake news on this story right from the very beginning. But if we look at the genesis of where this investigation started, it started with Ben Bradshaw using parliamentary privilege to claim that we had used Cambridge Analytica and been involved in Russian dark money. Today's report from the Electoral Commission says it has no evidence of that, and actually has fined us on a technical accounting query.
Right.
I think people like Jim are a bit sad and bitter about it because they lost the referendum. They clearly thought that we were, incompetent or, whatever other words he uses. But actually what we did was motivate millions of working class Labour people to go out and vote for Brexit.
But Jim, are you sad and bitter?
Absolutely not. I mean, I was covering the campaign as an independent journalist.
Oh, yeah, right.
Standing on the Nigel Farage flotilla alongside Arron as he looked on the Palace of Westminster.
You're about as unbiased as Carol Cadwallader and the rest of the Guardian idiots.
Well, I'm delighted to have such a strong endorsement of my new publication from a man such as yourself, Arron. But look, this is, I think the interesting thing as well is that this is still playing out 2 years on, and no matter what happens, I don't think there's any chance really now of this affecting or in any way impacting the outcome, which is going to be Britain leaving the EU.
I mean, Jim, wouldn't you agree that even if it was correct, we dispute it, that a £7,000 overspend on £12 million of campaign finance is a drop in the ocean? We dispute it and we say it's incorrect, but even if it was true, it would be a tiny amount of money.
And with that in mind, I do think the interesting thing is what happens to Vote Leave, who have allegedly overspent by a substantially more money, according to the investigation that is currently winding its way through the Electoral Commission.
I think our opinion of Vote Leave, which is probably not a great deal better than yours.
Right. I mean, Chloe, what do you want to say? You voted. You work for Vote Leave. Chloe, what do you say?
Well, as I said, it's an ongoing investigation. Vote Leave have been cleared twice. I think. I think there is a real. It smacks of desperation a little bit from people who don't want Brexit to happen. And, they've lost the argument on the single market and the customs union, kind of clutching at straws at any way to belittle the result. But you're right, Jim. There's no way that we're going to stop Brexit now. It's happening. I think we should just get on with it and wait for the investigation.
Vote Leave gave more than £500,000 in the final days of the referendum campaign to a 23-year-old fashion student who was working often in the Vote Leave office. I mean, that is a somewhat unusual arrangement.
Well, it was cleared by the Electoral Commission, and there's new evidence that's come forward. And on this show, we saw there was no smoking gun, as you found out. Well, so we'll see what happens.
Arron, I just wanted to ask you because
I was just going to say to Jim Waterstone, the Electoral Commission okayed a £9 million spend from the government, who was a non-participant in this, to send a leaflet to everyone in the country.
Right.
They rode roughshod over every rule.
Can I just ask, because Chloe mentioned, Brexit is going to happen.
Yeah.
Why do you think the DUP are the great defenders at the moment of Brexit?
Well, I think that they believe in the Brexit principles. I mean, people call it hard Brexit or otherwise, but our view is that leaving the European Union is leaving the customs union and leaving the single market, and I do think they will hold the government to account. Right,
you don't think they're more interested in protecting the union than they are pursuing the kind of Brexit that you'd like to see?
I think they're interested in many things, but clearly the government rely on them for their majority, and they're an important voice.
All right, Arron Banks, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're calling time on Britain's membership of the European Union.